In 2015, a man in Los Angeles with no construction background built a tiny wooden house on wheels for a homeless grandmother sleeping in the dirt near his apartment. It cost him about $1,200 and 5 days of work. That same city later spent over $100,000 per unit on shelters the size of a backyard shed. However, the strangest part of this story is what the city did to the $1,200 house. They came for it with a garbage truck. Tonight, 7 government tiny home projects that failed the people they were built for, and 5 built by ordinary Americans that quietly worked. More than 700,000 Americans are now homeless on any given night, the highest number ever recorded, and the tiny home village has become the answer that every city hall in the country reaches for. Small individual shelters, a locking door, a bed. $1,500, about the price of a used sedan. But by the time those cabins were standing in a finished village with the grading contracts, the utility hookups, the fencing, the consultants, and the administrative overhead stacked on top, reporters going through the city's own records found that some villages had cost well over $100,000 for every single shed. Not per apartment. Per shed, with no bathroom and no kitchen inside it. A structure you could order online for the price of a lawn tractor had somehow absorbed the cost of a small house in most of America. And when residents of the surrounding neighborhoods asked how a metal box on a parking lot could cost that much, the answers came in the language of procurement and change orders, which is a language that has never once kept a human being warm. Number 2. The rule. And even when a person can live with the rules, there is a quieter enemy waiting inside the system: time itself. Number 3. The calendar. In several California cities, tiny home villages were announced with press conferences, ribbon graphics, and applause, and then disappeared into the machinery of environmental review, neighborhood appeals, and permit revisions. In more than one case, the gap between the announcement and the first resident moving in stretched past 2 years. Now hold two facts side by side. A crew of volunteers can assemble one of these prefab cabins in a single day. And every winter that passes while the paperwork circulates, people die of exposure in the same city that already approved the money to shelter them. The families of those people were never mailed a copy of the environmental review. The cruelest part is that nobody in the process did anything illegal. Every delay was proper, every signature was required, and the process worked exactly as designed. That is the problem. The process was designed to protect the process. Administration, and in multiple audited cases, the yearly cost of keeping one person in one shed, a shed with no plumbing, worked out to more than the yearly rent on a modest one-bedroom apartment in the same county. For the money spent maintaining a person in a 64-square-foot box with a shared toilet across the yard, the same person could have been placed in an actual apartment with a lease, a bathroom, and a mailbox. Auditors have pointed this out in report after report. The reports are received, filed, and thanked for their service. If this pattern is starting to make you angry, hit subscribe, because this channel covers what the systems in this country actually do to the people at the bottom of them, every single week. Number 6. The pilot program that vanished. Cities love the word pilot, because a pilot program lets everyone claim credit for where? And the answer is almost always the land nobody else wanted. A remediated industrial lot beside the freeway, a strip of asphalt behind the wastewater plant, a parcel at the far edge of the county where the bus comes twice a day, if it comes. The village opens, and the residents discover that the nearest grocery store is an hour away on foot, that no employer will schedule them because they cannot reliably get to a shift, and that the roar of the interstate never stops. Beds sit empty in these remote villages, while downtown sidewalks stay full, and officials express confusion. But there is no mystery. A shelter you cannot live your life from is not housing. It is storage. And human beings, even desperate ones, especially desperate ones, can tell the difference between being housed and being warehoused. So that is the pattern. Had gotten to know her the way neighbors do, a wave, a few words, her name. He did not form a committee. He bought lumber, watched some videos, and over 5 days built her a small wooden house on wheels, a bed, a locking door, solar light, for around $1,200. When Smokey saw it for the first time, she cried, and then she did something she had not been able to do in 10 years. She slept through the night behind a locked door. The video of Smokey seeing her house went viral, donations poured in, and Summers built dozens more for other homeless neighbors. And then the same city spending 6 figures per shed, declared the little houses illegal structures and began seizing them, hauling some away with sanitation crews. Summers stood in the street and watched trucks carry off homes that working people had paid for with small donations. After public outcry, the city eventually agreed to give some of a catering truck, driving into camps and serving hot meals to homeless people, learning their names, hearing their stories. After years of those conversations, he reached a conclusion that no agency report had reached, that the deepest wound was not the lack of a roof, but the loss of family, of being known by anyone at all. So he built Community First Village on land outside the city, hundreds of tiny homes and RVs arranged like a real neighborhood, with gardens, a market, workshops, an outdoor cinema, and neighbors who know each other's names. Formerly homeless men and women pay modest rent, hold jobs on the property in the gardens and the workshops and the market, and grow old there. Some have been residents for years and now welcome newcomers on their first frightening night, because nobody explains the road home better than someone who walked it. The village has become one of the largest projects of its kind in America, studied by delegations from cities everywhere. Graham's line to those delegations is simple. Housing will never solve homelessness on its own. Community will, and you cannot pour community out of a budget line. Builder number 4, the pastor and the 7-year key. In Detroit, a minister named Faith Fowler looked at the empty lots around her church and asked a different question entirely. How do the poor become owners? Her organization, Cass Community Social Services, built a neighborhood of small houses on those lots, each one different from its neighbors. Porches, peaked roofs, real foundations, most between roughly 250 and 400 square feet, because Fowler insisted that a poor person's home should look like a house somebody wanted, not a unit somebody allocated. The residents, many of them seniors, working poor and formerly homeless men and women, pay roughly $1 per square foot in rent. And here is the part that separates it from every shed village in this video. Residents who stay, pay their modest rent, and attend financial classes for 7 years receive the deed. The house becomes theirs, an asset they can pass to their children in a city where their families were historically shut out of ownership entirely. People who once slept in shelters now hold equity. Not one government tiny home village on the failure list tonight offers its residents so much as a mailbox key that cannot be taken back. Builder number 5, the carpenter and the church ladies. This last one never made national news, and versions of it are happening in small towns all over the country right now. A retired carpenter, I will call Walt, outside Knoxville, Tennessee, learned that an elderly man from his church, a widower named Earl, had been sleeping in a storage unit after medical bills took his trailer. Walt did not call a hotline. He called the demolition crews he had worked with for 40 years and asked what they were throwing away. Framing lumber from a torn-down garage, windows from a remodel, a door, shingles, insulation offcuts. The women of the church put out a coffee can for the rest. Of person. Most of the time, you just need to learn one name. The woman at the end of the grocery store parking lot has one. The man sleeping in the sedan outside the church has one. And in every one of tonight's 5 success stories, that was the entire starting budget. One name, learned on purpose, by somebody who decided that waiting for the system was no longer an acceptable plan. So now you know why the $100,000 sheds sit empty, why people choose tents over rulebooks, and why the builds that work always start with one stubborn person instead of one approved motion. Next week, I am covering the quiet network of church parking lots across America that let people sleep safely in their vehicles overnight, how the programs work, and how the people who use them stay invisible. Subscribe so you do not miss it. And the video on your screen right now covers the 7 survival rules that vehicle-dwelling Americans pass around like currency. It is the natural next chapter of tonight's story. Click it and keep going.